Good evening, crafting friends. I'm Dorene Decibus from It Begins with Ink and Paper, and welcome to Simply Stamping Sunday. I'm so happy that you're able to join me and watch along as we do some very simple stamping with just inks, with just ink, stamp, and paper, because that is the basics, and you can do some wonderful stamping with just the basics. So I'm just making sure my screen looks good, and we'll get started. Okay, there we go. We've got some of my paper scraps from earlier up in the top of the screen. Sorry about that. I've been doing a lot of crafting today. But so this month actually, we are using the Planted Paradise stamp set and the Very Best Occasions stamp set. We're using 2 this month because Planet Paradise does not have any sentiments in the stamp set. So I want to make sure that we had a stamp set that had lots of great sentiments in it as well. The Planet Paradise set is a reversible stamp set. So you get the detailed side and then the plain side. So you can do some nice two-step stamping with reversible stamps. So that's very cool. So I'm going to start off with a show and tell. I've been doing this for the past few weeks and people seem to like it, so I'm going to continue doing this on Sunday nights. So I really was working a lot on Easter this weekend. And this actually is last month's paper pumpkin kit. I made, not going to show you all of them, but 12 exact cards like this and 12 of these containers. I still need to fill them. As you can see, there's nothing inside it yet. But these are for my advisory, just for a little springtime Easter treat. And I just wanted to get a head start on this before, like the Thursday night before Easter. I thought I'd be ready for a change. I stamped the front of the envelopes with this cute bunny, and the envelope comes lined, so it's going to make a great little gift for my students. All right, let me set those aside. So this weekend I've been attending it's called the Card Makers Success Summit. I think that's the exact name for it. And so I've been trying some of the different techniques. I've been working on other things too, so I haven't gone through everything I want to make yet. But one of the techniques we were taught is taking your paper scraps and from your designer series paper and weaving them, sort of like we did on those red looms when we were kids and making all those pot holders. Well, now this is what we were doing with our paper scraps. I did one that was very loosely weaved, and then this one is much more tightly weaved. I don't know if you can, or woven, I should be saying. Oh my goodness, can you tell it's a Sunday night? Tightly woven. You can see that there's just a tiny little spot of white. But on this one, there are much bigger spots of white. So I like both of the woven cards. They were fun to make, easy to make, and I really liked adding a frame to them. And on this one, I tried to make the frame the size of the woven piece, and on this one I made the frame the same size as this, but smaller than the woven piece. So those were 2 cards I made for that. And then this next project is a 12 by 12 one-sheet wonder where you have no scraps left. So I use the Flight and Airy designer series paper. This is one side, this is the other, and I cut it into 6 4x4 squares and then 12 2x2 squares. So there's 1 square at the top and the bottom, and then I use some boho blue as the accent color, and these are the cards I created. So this one and I use the Perennial postage stamp set. So here for you always. Happy Mother's Day. Sending love and best wishes. I can't thank you enough. Big hugs. And you're simply marvelous. These cards were so fast and easy to make. They were a lot of fun. So remember, as I said last month when I showed you a one sheet wonder, when you need to make a bunch of cards in a short period of time, this is a great way to go. This next card is a double Z fold card. So you can see that. It is using the Kidding Around Designer Series paper and the Kidding Around stamp set. I cut this little guy with the bird on his head out of the Designer Series paper. I thought it went well with the play, the slide and swing scenery paper in the background, but that was a card I made. And then I played around with one of the new online exclusive stamp sets, and let me see. It is Happy Little Things. So this was just a really fun stamp set to play around with, and here are the cards that I made. I used one with just the two loves. Celebrate, and these little stars are inside the are one of the stamps inside the stamp set. Love you. And I love this card. I just used Wishing You and some of the smaller stamp sets and just stamped them all around on the card. It was just a lot of fun to make. And then did some embossing on the Best Day Ever. So those were fun cards to make. So that's it for my show and tell for today. Okay, let's get started in what we're going to be doing tonight. I want to start by just reviewing what we did last week. We made these 3 cards last week. The Love You, Miss You card, that was one I copied from Amy Coender's. And then these 2 cards, which I copied from Pinterest, Happy Birthday with butterflies and one with the plant. So those were the 3 cards we made last week. And these are 2 cards tonight that I copied from Pinterest. Used some different colors, but I just love them so much. So here is the first one that we're going to make. You Make My Life Happier. And I'm using 2 of the pots and a piece of Designer Series paper from the Nature Sweetness in the background. So let's get started on that one. So the first thing we need to do is to do some stamping. And so I just have a 1/4 sheet of white paper, and I need to stamp this first image of leaves, and I'm stamping that in Garden Apple Green. And then in, Garden Green, I'm going to be using lots of greens tonight. In Garden Green, I'm going to stamp 3 of these leaves. These are all very easy to, that one's not so great. Let's make sure it's all inked up. There we go. These are very easy to cut out. Boy, I'm not hitting that bottom. Let me turn it a little bit. There we go. Stamp enough so that we have 3 really good stamped images. And then I am going to stamp the 2 pots. The smaller pot is going to be in Blueberry Bushel. I love this really bright blue. It's such a pretty blue. There we go. And I am going to stamp the larger pot in Gorgeous Grape. And there we go. Okay, just pulled off one of my fingernails. That happens. I've been getting these different type of gel nails, and they haven't been lasting. The first time they lasted like 5 weeks. This time they've lasted days. Okay, so now we're going to cut those out, except I have the magic of television with me, and I have already done some stamping and cutting, and I've got lots of choices here, so let me just see what I have that I'm going to use. So I have my leaves. I have there we go. And I don't think I need any of this for, I always cut out a bunch and I stamp and cut out a bunch at one time. So I have them in little baggies to be ready to go. All right, so we're going to stamp the greeting in Pebbled Path. And it's "You make my life happier." And I'm going to do that right up in the corner. There we go. Okay, so let's just put this all together now. So I'm going to be adding a little bit of adhesive to the back of this pot so I can add the leaves. So let's do it this way. I'm going to just stick one going off to the right, one going off to the left, trying to keep them inside the pot, and then one is just going to be stuck right behind. So I'm just going to add some more adhesive. And then add this one right back here. And then this one is going to go on the front of the card. There we go. And next, I am going to be adding, you can tell I use the back side of my paper often. I'm going to be adding my leaves to this pot, but on this one I am going to be adding some dimensionals. And I'm going to be putting this over the front of this card a little bit. There we go. So that's what our little tag looks like. That's going to go on the front of the card. And I'm going to put this aside. I'm going to cut those out later. So the sizes of all of this is, we're starting with a basic white thick cardstock for the base. And this measures 5.5 by 8.5. Then I'm going to be using this piece of Nature Sweetness Designer Series paper, and it measures 2 3/4 by 4 1/2. And I'm just going to be putting that behind the tag or the front piece that I just made. I'm going to center this on the front, and this is just a really nice accent piece for this. Then I'm going to attach the next piece with dimensionals. So let me grab a sheet of those. So I just put a dimensional in each corner, and then I add one in the middle. Just gives it a little pop up. It's really good to have different types of adhesive when you're doing your card making. I probably use the dimensionals. I use the Stampin' Seal the most, then dimensionals, and then probably glue dots. And then I'm just going to center that over it, so there's just a little piece. I could have cut this into 2 smaller pieces and just put those 2 pieces down. I chose not to, but remember, I could do a die cut or make it so that I'm not using as much of the specialty paper. And then I think on the inside, I am going to take my Blueberry Bushel ink, and I'm going to stamp another pot. I really like having something on the inside of the card as well. And then I'll use my Granny Apple Green and stamp the leaves like we had on the front. Though this time, they're not going to be cut out. There we go. Card. Okay, we'll set that aside. Our second card that we're going to be making looks like this. Just another very simple card. We're using cardstock for all of these elements, a little bit of the Perennial Lavender Designer Series paper. I'm using the piece that has the crumb cake look to it. So let me just put that aside. So for stamping for this one, again, we're going to be doing a lot of stamping. So let me start by, we're going to be using a piece of Pebbled Path cardstock, and it measures 4 1/4 by 11. We are going to be putting a piece on the inside, which I will do afterwards. I want to do some stamping on it. We can start by putting on our piece of Designer Series paper. I'm just going to add a little bit of adhesive to it. And then I am just going to center this, not quite, mostly centered, onto our piece of cardstock. There we go. And this piece, I am going to be using the Pebbled Path. Let me just move this out of the way. I'm going to be using the piece of the Pebbled Path. I'm going to be using Pebbled Path ink to stamp the greeting. And this piece of basic white cardstock, we're going to need a piece that's 3 1/4 by 5. That's going on the inside of the card. And then this is 1 1/4 inches by 4, and it is going to go on the outside of the card. And I'm going to just stamp over here the thinking of you. And then I'm going to take this it measures 1/4 inch by 4. That's going to go right across the bottom. And I'm going to actually use the white glue to put this down. It's kind of hard to add the Stampin' seal on something that is more narrow than the dispenser brings out. So I'm just going to put that down like that. And then this is going to go on the front of my cardstock, on my card. I'm just going to add some seal on the back side. And I'm going to put this towards the bottom. It's only, actually it measures 4 1/4 inches, not 4. And then on this piece, I'm going to start doing my stamping. So I need to grab a cleaning pad to clean some stamps. Like I've said before, I like to use these black cleaning pads that we sell. I like that they have these, it's like a soft fiber, and it gets right into the groove of the stamps, and it cleans all of it. So it's just, I've always just really loved using this instead of using the purple chamois, though I have the purple chamois. The purple chamois is easier for me when I'm traveling because it just needs water to clean, so it's just, that's just a little bit more convenient. Okay, so we've got everything clean. Let's start some stamping now. So I am going to be using this, the Pebbled Path, to stamp the pot that the plants are going to go in. So there we go, that's done. Then I am going to be using Old Olive to stamp 2 of these plants that are more narrow in nature. I am going to use the Mossy Meadow to stamp the little leaf that's going to go on the front. I am going to stamp in Crumb Cake these 2 pieces, these 2 plants, I should say. In Garden Green, I'm going to be stamping 2 of those large leaves again. There we go. And then finally, in Shaded Spruce, I'm going to be stamping these 2 images. And because I'm stamping them in the same color, I put them on the same block. And I'll just have to stamp each one once. So I think we have used almost all the colors of green that Stampin' Up! Sells. Okay, so again, the magic of television. I've got all these pieces already cut out, so I'll set these aside so I can cut those out later and add to my stash. So I have here the pot. I have the 2 big leaves. I have my other stamped images. So I'm going to start with this little leaf first, and I'm just going to put a dimensional on the back because that's going to go right on the front of the card near the greeting. So that's why I stamped a little bit off, a little bit to the right, so I could fit that on. Plant. So I am going to want to start with my big image. It's going to go right here in the center of the pot. So I'm going to be using some glue to start to attach these. I've shown you how you can do this by using the stick and seal plastic wrap. Tonight I'm going to show you the other way that you can do it. So now I'm going to go in my layers. So I'm going to be doing my my front images first. I'm just going to be putting a little bit of adhesive on and bringing those to where they need to be. And just adding a little bit of glue to stick them in place. I'm going to try to get different heights. And everything kind of all wrapped around. Hold that for just a minute. I'm just going to wipe off any glue that comes across to the front. I'm going to add this piece right coming out behind this leaf. And then this other plant, I don't know what kind of plant this is. If you know what kind, please tell me in the comments. And this one's going to kind of come out to the side like that. And now I just have the really tall ones to put into place. There we go. And one more, and our arrangement will be done. And you sometimes just have to hold that glue for a few minutes. So here's our little potted plant. All right, so now we're going to put some dimensionals on this. I also tried to strategically place my dimensionals just to add a little more adhesive to keep everything where it's at. Peel these off, and the front of the card will be done. And all we're going to need to do next is the inside of the card. So there's the front. And the inside, we're going to take that piece. And this time, let's see, what did I do? Let's take the Pebbled Path ink. And I'm going to use the same pot we used on the inside of the other card. And then I'm going to use the same leaves, but let's see, where did I put them? Right here. But I'm going to use them in garden green this time. Okay, so all we have to do now is put this in the center, and we will be done for tonight with this week's edition of Simply Stamping Sunday. And here we have our second card. Let me put them down and just remind you of what our first card looked like. And this is this week's set of cards. Thank you so much for joining me tonight on Simply Stamping Sunday. We'll be back next Sunday night for week 3 of using our cards. And our cards are going to be a little more complicated next week, but they're still only going to use ink, stamps, and paper. I will be here Friday night for Fun Fold Friday. But I will tell you it's going to be a little later than normal. I'll be posting that on the Facebook page. I have to be in Boston for the day, and I have a feeling I'm not going to be home to be ready to go live at 6 o'clock. So be looking for that time change. And I hope you have a great week, everyone. Good night.